about tales of extremities. I mean, obviously, none of us have been to Keith Moon exactly. I'll just kick it off with a very quick story. Working with John Miles at Decca, we were in his hometown of Newcastle. We played, and we stayed at the Newcastle, whatever it was, Holiday Inn. All got very drunk, and I made a phone call downstairs about 2:30 in the morning, and I was not a brave lad at all at any of this, but at 6:30 in the morning, John got a knock on the door, and he sort of opened it in his sleep, and yes, and in came the hotel staff with baked beans for 24. And it was, and I remember next day I'd done that. Which of course seemed quite funny at the time. He's hardly thrown TV sets out of a window, but any tales like that of extremity, of silliness?
One of my acts at EMI was the Choirboys, and they're a great band. I love them. I'm still in touch with them now, and they're Joe Elliott's pickup band, Joe Elliott's Down and Outs. It's the Choirboys, but they're still gigging. I went to see them a little while ago. Great bunch of guys. And they were managed by Sharon Osbourne. And they were playing, we had them playing down in Tokyo at the NHK Hall, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's about 1,500 seater. It's maximum 2,000. But Ozzy was playing the night before at the Budokan, which is I think it's like 10, 12,000. And so there was myself, Sharon, Rob McSween, and Ozzy, and we're flying down on JAL down to Tokyo. We're up the sharp end, and we're all getting a bit merry. And the captain, because the flight deck is above first class, and the captain came down and said, "You're making too much noise, and if you don't shut up, we're going to land in Calcutta and throw you off." So nobody wanted that. So in those days, you didn't have individual entertainment systems. They turned the lights down, put a movie on, and Rod McSween, I don't know if you know him, but Rod falls to sleep everywhere. Wherever you go, if it gets dark, Rod goes to sleep. And Ozzy got Sharon's eyebrow pencil, and on Rod's forehead wrote "Fuck Japan" on his forehead, and he didn't wake up. So we get off in Japan, and we go straight to the Budokan. And we met by Mr. Ito. You remember Mr. Ito? He's Yakuza. He's the fucking half a finger missing, tattooed. He's the heavy duty guy, the promoter. And so Rod, we go through customs and everything. Polite there, and he's got "Fuck Japan" on his forehead. And we go through all the customs, through the taxi driver, through the limo driver, to the side of the stage. Sharon's called ahead, and all the crew are up on it. Nobody says anything. So he's introduced to Mr. Ito, and Mr. Ito does a big bow, and so does Rod with "Fuck Japan" on his forehead. And we go, anyway, to cut a long story short, we go all the way through the night, and nobody says anything. And then we go straight from the gig to this Korean barbecue restaurant. And again, nobody says anything. He never goes to the toilet, never sees it on the thing. And we go back to the hotel, and everybody gets very drunk, and Rod goes to bed, still hasn't seen it. Of course, he doesn't see it till he gets in his bathroom to go to bed. And he comes down to breakfast the next morning, and this eyebrow pencil is indelible. And he's been rubbing at his head, and he's taken a layer of skin off his forehead. And of course, he comes in with this red forehead, and all the crew and everybody's down there just crying with laughing at him. Absolutely priceless. Absolutely priceless. I've forgotten about that.
That's a gem. That's brilliant.
I was going to say, actually,
nobody said a word. You know how polite they are. Nobody said a thing.
I was going to say, as we've all warmed up now, who's got the? Can we hear your very, very best stories? The one story that you would that you've told a million times and that you would tell at a dinner party.
Oh, there's loads. There's if we get into expenses, there's the one where when I was at EMI, we used to meet 4 times a year in different places all around the world to set the priorities for the coming 6 months. You know, they don't need to be told how to sell Queen and Beatles albums, just make them available, but they don't know, you know, that you poured loads of development money into an act like Blur. And Blur come out with She's So High, which is too drug orientated and too English to break internationally. It wasn't until Boys and Girls come out, we've got something, you know, we've got a handle to swing it with. So they need to be focused on what's coming through for the next 6 months. So there was one of these we had in, it's off the coast of Miami Beach. There's an island called Fisher Island. And the only thing that's on this island is a golf course. And on the other side, a resort hotel, which is where we're having they're called Q meetings. We were Q2 and they'd make recommendations up to Q1, which was people like Fifield and Rupert Perry and Miles Copeland and people like that. And Charles Koppelman and Marty Bandier, and they basically endorse what we did, and then they're going off and have an expensive meal. So we're on Fisher Island and we're on the Miami Beach, and Jean-Francois, you all remember JF, don't you? So JF is running EMI, and typical, very emotional Frenchman, and he gets into an argument with Henny Van Keren, who's works for Alexis Rotelli, who's running Europe. And they get into we're in this restaurant that sells soft shell crabs, and they get into a scrap. Forget what they're arguing about. So I pull them apart and say, come on, Jeff, let's go and have a drink. And we go down the strip, and we go into all the bars all the way down, and it's getting late, and he says, come on, Johnny, we find a crack den. I said, I'm not going to any crack den, JF. I said, you know, this is business, you know, this is, you don't do that kind of thing. They have Uzis here. This is Miami. They play for keeps. He says, and he said to me this wonderful phrase. He says, Johnny, are we monkeys or are we gorillas? And I said, look, for tonight, let's choose to be monkeys. We can be gorillas some other time. And so we get back to this chain link ferry that takes us across the island, and we're the last people across, and the ferry takes us across. And of course, we get there, and we're stranded because there's no transport across the other side of the island. So, to cut a long story short, we hotwire a golf cart from the golf club, and we're ploughing across the island on this golf cart, feeling very proud of ourselves. And we get to the other side, and we go to bed, and we leave the golf cart by the side of the dock. Get up in the morning, somehow or other, we're looking around, where's the golf cart? And this is the Pacific, you know, this is the dry Tortugas, the water's clear as a bell. And we look down, and the golf cart is in the harbour. You can see it underneath the water. And I don't know how it got there, but anyway, so I get home, I forget all about it. And about 2 weeks later, I get a bill from the hotel, Fisher Island Hotel, $15,000 for a golf cart. Because on the so closed circuit television, they'd seen me and JF hotwiring this car and this golf cart, taking it across the island. So it comes in as an invoice. So I okay it, sign it, and they paid it. They paid $15,000 for a golf cart without questioning. Can you imagine that happening today?
That dwarfs my stories by quite a lot, Chris.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
What I'm saying is one thing pretending to Plymouth Radio is another thing. £15,000 for a fucking golf cart, isn't it?
Dollars. Let's be honest.
Oh, dollars. Sorry about that. Yeah. What about you, Chris? Have you got your dinner time?
I can't top anything like that. I do remember going with Spandau Ballet and Phil Long, and we went to a restaurant just outside Chrysalis, and of course they got completely wasted. And there was Steve from Spandau Ballet being sick out of the window of the promotion office. And I mean, you know, it was just like we were supposed to be almost like their guardians, but no, we were just sort of feeding them, and but no, there's nothing like that sort of dosh. Going back to the bill that you may have put on the Hilton in Montreux, whatever, I think I probably just denied it was me and probably just didn't pay it.
Good man, good man. So you
Nev, what about yourself?
Dear, oh dear, oh dear. As a little one, I was down at Real World Studios, just a mile or so away from where I am now, Peter Gabriel's place, and Wet, Wet, Wet were recording there, and I knew them pretty well. And in the afternoon, I think it was the European Cup or something. There was a match between England and Scotland on the TV, and so the afternoon it was Peter Gabriel's sofa and it was Wet 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 sofa, the Scots and the English, and we all got well and truly tanked up, and I had an old ragtop Land Rover that I borrowed from the studios, and Cooler Shaker were playing at Mole's Club that night in Bath, and I wanted to go down and see them, and I got tickets, and I asked the band if they wanted to come, and Marty Pellow said he wanted to come and see Cooler Shaker. So we drove down there, and the gig was, typical packed night in Moles in the cellar, absolutely hot and sweaty and revolting. And Marty got more and more and more and more out of it. And I dumped him in the back of the Land Rover to drive back out to the studios. And we got stuck in a traffic jam coming out of Bath at some traffic lights, and suddenly I hear all this honking and I hear this weird wailing noise, and I look out round the back, and there's Marty Pellow standing on the tailgate of the Land Rover singing to the entire traffic jam, New York, New York, at the top of it. Drag him back in again and take him back to the studio, but he got a good round of applause.
Brilliant.